to house part of the super terrific haul that my friend Charles acquired from an aquarist who wanted to get out of the hobby. I'm using this 29-gallon aquarium. In moving the fish, loads of pest snails came along for the ride, and so I continue to manually remove them. I previously planted this tank, but as plants were not doing all that great in it, I went ahead and removed the last of them. It does have a fertilized substrate and I believe sufficient light, but I'm not sure why the tank didn't do all that great with plants. I think when I had electric blue acara in the tank, they may have tended to damage some plants. I also housed a single bed of splendens in the tank for some time. Of course, a 29-gallon is pretty big for one betta. I think a 10-gallon is ideal for one betta. You can go smaller, but I like to give them plenty of room. But with this haul, Charles did acquire 4 brilliant Rasbora. They have a nice green sheen to them and a bit of orange on the caudal fin. Dark brown line down the flanks with some iridescence above it. Yeah, they look alright. I think brilliant's a little bit of an overstatement for this somewhat drab fish. I was very pleased that with this purchase, Charles finally acquired the Daisy's blue-eyed ricefish. I wanted to acquire this fish for some time. I did get the Medaka Platinum ricefish from our fish club and had a bit of incidental success breeding them. I found one fry in a Daphnia culture, and one fry apparently came with some plants that I got from a fellow aquarist in the club, and I housed those fry in a tiny aquarium until they got big enough to join the adults that are now in a shrimp tank at Charles' house. But I really like the Daisy's blue-eyed ricefish. It has a lot of color to it. Nice reddish hue, and of course the blue eyes. Very nice looking fish. There are a couple of cherry barbs. I think they're female in the tank, so not a whole lot of color to them. And of course, many ancistrus, some long finned, some albino, some wild type. I moved most of the adults from this tank into a 30-gallon long tank at Charles' house. Another fish that I'm very pleased that we acquired is the pygmy cory. There's a school of 6 or 8 in this tank, and they're doing fine with relatively peaceful community fish. I put the coconut shells in the tank so the ancistrus would feel more at ease. There are also a couple of, they're called black coolie loach, but they're really just brown. The point is they're not striped, as are many species. There are quite a few species of coolie loach. I think just a few tend to wind up in the hobby, but I've heard that the black coolie loach is actually hardier than the striped variety that one often acquires. And there are several autocinclus in the tank. I hadn't had much success with autocinclus. I think that they are housed and kept very poorly in shipping, and most of the autocinclus I purchased didn't make it. I managed to keep a couple alive for a few years and subsequently gave them to Charles, but the seller, the previous owner of these fish, said that he believes that the autocinclus were breeding for him because there were several in the tank smaller than what he purchased. So I've heard that they are very difficult to breed. I've seen one YouTuber who actually has some success with it, but what he goes through in setting up aquaria specifically for autocinclus, it looks like a very difficult species to breed, so I'm not sure if that's the case or not. But at any rate, it is nice to acquire, I'm not sure, 3 or 4, maybe 5, 6, I'm not sure, autocinclus. It's difficult to count the fish since there are so many of them and quite a variety, and they're just getting settled here for the past week in this tank. I'm making them as comfortable as I can and feeding them a variety of food, quality fare, keeping the filtration and temperature, water parameters, everything I can do. And lastly, there are numerous guppies and Endler's livebearers and hybrids of same in this batch. Overall, a very equitable purchase. All the fish, aquaria, supplies, food, equipment from someone who wanted to get out of the hobby.